Good morning, everyone. So I'm delighted we get the PowerPoint deck up. Excellent. So I'll be visiting with you for 20 minutes to talk about some of the tailwinds and trends that are driving the industry forward, and we've got a number of those, and then also some headwinds that are out there that aren't going to be talked about in any of these other rooms over the course of the next couple of days. So thank you, Patty, for having me. I'm pleased to share this discussion with you. Already, wrong one. There we go. How are we doing? There we go. So first one is, it's interesting the way that the conference is structured, where we have everyone's a gamer. If you look at, this is Tim from Fortnite saying, look, everyone's a gamer. There's no difference between mobile and PC gaming. And then you have this, where mobile gamers say, oh no, don't call me a gamer. So you can see that we still have some evolutionary issues that we need to work through when we think about the industry from our perspective and customers from their perspective. And then we have this other unknown, which is like politicians and people that make rules and set regulations on us. Tailwinds. Absolutely remarkable time to be in this industry. You could not have created, the people in this room as well in the other rooms, a better environment for us to be reaching everybody in the world. Over 2.6 billion gamers, which means there's another 5 billion more to go get. I mean, that's a terrific number. It's a great base. It's growing. Your revenue, the revenue for the industry is over $140 billion worldwide. This is a staggering number when you think about it's bigger than music, bigger than movies. You put these together, it's very, very significant. Everyone is a gamer, despite the fact that mobile folks may be thinking they need to catch up a little bit. The talent that is attracted into this industry is phenomenal, drives us forward. The innovation that happens on this interface between humans and machines, we do it in the hands and the homes of gamers, not in the laboratories. Some of the other things that we'll touch on, but AI, broadband growth, the cloud, mobile, esports, all of these things are driving the industry forward. And it doesn't matter who you are or what game you're making, this is pushing the industry. And some of these things are quite powerful, and they're outside of and much bigger than this industry by itself. So singling out broadband and using some data from Cisco and a few other sources, these slides are, and I think they'll be available, Patty, afterwards. This is just from Cisco, but some of the more fascinating thing is this is the global projection for broadband adoption that will be at 60% worldwide by 2022, up from 45. So you figure 33% more people are going to be online playing games, or just online available to play games. You also have, this is fascinating to watch in the next two slides, 80% of the traffic is video. So 80% worldwide projected, and you can see some speed numbers here which are helpful, obviously, as tools for us to project what the magic our industry makes. Looking at North America, no surprise, we're pretty much all online. You're not going to see a lot of change in the next couple of years. But what's really staggering is, look at this, 80% on video and 13 connected devices on average. So you might recall that the other, and then if you look at Asia just as one other case, there's several of these that are in the data. You look at going from 41 to 62%, so 50% of the people in Asia are going to be coming online on broadband in the next 50 years. Very much reinforces the App Annie discussion in the other room about this is where the growth opportunity is, where you're going to have the new customers. But again, this constant 80% is on video, 80% of that content. Now, when we get to no surprise in our industry, right? Just was at GamesBeat 2 weeks ago, and this comes from the head of YouTube Gaming. 50 billion hours were watched on YouTube Gaming of video game content in this 1 year. So from August of 17 to August of 18, 50 billion. Okay, that reinforces that notion 80% of the traffic's on video. Then when you look at this, this is no surprise. Again, to everyone in this room, we have Twitch approaching 1 billion hours per month. That's you see the upward sloping line to hit this. You get to 1 billion hours. That's already happened a couple of times, and we're going to see that happen on a more regular basis. So here's the thing that's not illustrated here is today, right now, it's about equal between mobile and PC when it comes to use of the internet. This is going to flip, and mobile and smartphones will use twice as much of the internet usage will be generated over smartphones and over PCs. So this mobile push, the growth of broadband, the growth of gaming, the percentage of it that's video, these are all just enormous forces that favor our industry, especially when we look at a few other things like game streaming and the like. So let's look at mobile. When you see this is, again, these are data that support the fact that this conference is happening, is 84% of the revenue in the app stores is games. It has been from the beginning. It's been constant that we've been generating the revenue that drives the app stores forward. And when you look at the growth of what's going to happen with game traffic, again, this is from Cisco, is that 55% compound annual growth rate for video game traffic growth on the internet globally. So again, when we look back and we see that 80% of that is video, that's where we are. And again, that will tie into some of the streaming growth that we expect to see. But this is something that's important for all of us. Only 3% of worldwide devices, out of the 12 billion devices that are projected to be in everybody's hands and pockets, only 3% will be 5G enabled. So all of this push, all of this view over mobile is going to happen on current technology, which is already challenging for a number of us when we're on the go and we're out of Wi-Fi. But this is the reality that you'll be designing your games into for the next several years. Meanwhile, what's happening with the rest of content and advertising, which drives so much of the growth of this, not only our industry, but others. The first one I think that's like really kind of fun to look at is TV ads play to empty rooms a third of the time. That's expensive and wasteful. Right? And now people have figured out there's a lot better ways to target and optimize my advertising, and again, it's over digital. Much of it is merging over mobile, and then again, that pulls it right into our industry. So that's a massive tailwind that is sucking so bad as an economic proposition that pushes, or it's a very attractive pull into our industry. And then this is fascinating. This is the average age of the sports viewer by sport, and has trend data from 2006 to 2016. So I like golf, but that average viewer is 64 years old. And you can follow these on down and see that even the NFL, the average age is 50. Average age is 50. Where's everybody who's under, the lowest number here is 39. Where are they? Okay, so 2/3 of esports viewers are between 18 and 34 years old. 2/3 of them are. So you look at this again and you say, where, as a brand, how am I going to connect with the customers that I need to reach for the next generation? They're going to do that through esports, which is a fantastic tailwind for us. It's a tool for mass engagement. Now, it's widely discussed that the esports is expected to reach $1 billion this year as an industrial phenomenon. Going back to the second or third slide, we have a $143 billion industry worldwide, or 140 worldwide, 43 billion in North America, and esports is about to hit 1. Now, for a handful of companies, including Valve, it's a great business. If you're in the winners in that space, it can be enormous, and there are others, and we know, and they're here at this conference. But it's one of these things, the real value across the industry is engagement, because it is this phenomenon where you have Twitch doing 1 billion hours on live streaming, you have 50 billion hours of archived game viewing on YouTube, and you see the power of the desire to watch each other play games. It's almost irresistible. Then you add the rocket fuel of advertising, because there's so much potential with esports in our industry over sports in other industries. And then you add in this, and this is the force multiplier that's the big step forward in my view, is all of the sports, all of the evolved form of cloud gaming that we're hearing discussed, and you'll hear in other rooms. Google Stadia says you're going to go right from watching the game to playing the game. You just transition almost seamlessly as a consumer to do that. The ability to do that is so remarkable when you think about if they're able to deliver on that promise. it's going to be an enormous boost to the industry. And again, it's coming from this viewing, which is predominantly being done how? Over smartphones in the years ahead, less and less on PCs. But again, just a footnote here, no 5G boost until 2022, so we could have some resource constraints on some of the networks. Okay, so that's all the good news. Now let's look at some of the challenges out there. Who here is familiar with what the World Health Organization is looking to do at the end of this month? Raise your hand. Nobody's hand goes up. They're looking to label excessive video game play as an addiction, like alcoholism or use of tobacco or other substances like that. They simply took the definition of excessive gambling and they took gambling out and put excessive video game play in. That's the entirety of it. At the end of this month, it's likely that they will adopt that as a classification. There are 27 organizations in 16 countries, led by ESA, my former employer, going to say, this is wrong, don't do it, it's a mistake for a number of reasons. This comes from the Korean government, the Korean Creative Content Agency. And what it says is this. That previous slide basically says this. It's going to cost their industry 1/3 of their employment going forward and 1/3 of their revenue going forward if that classification gets made. That's the Korean government. That's the estimate in their market. I'm not suggesting that it's one-to-one into this market. Each country will go through its own decision to implement or respond to the WHO classification, and it's going to be up to the people in this room to have a voice that says our industry is not a threat, our industry is not a disease, we're very responsible about how we promote and use our products, and this is a bad outcome. That leads into another potential cloud, which I know everybody in this room has heard of, the loot box challenges. What's happening with business models? Up to this point, our industry has been able to innovate unconstrained by any government saying you can do this and you cannot do that. That's what's given birth to free-to-play, all different forms of monetization schemes on mobile, on PC, and on console. This happens because the government's not in the middle of it. Well, now you have, not just in the US, but you have Germany, and we have a bill that was introduced or just about to be introduced. It was previewed by a Republican senator in Missouri, which pairs up with Senator Hassan, who's a Democrat. The two of them they're very vocal on their criticism of loot boxes, which leads to not only this happening here in the US, but in Canada. And then the Federal Trade Commission is going to take a look at loot boxes in a workshop in August. So governments around the world and here in the US are looking at this. Now, last year when we had the loudest noise about loot boxes, we had over 20 bills were introduced on the state level, and they were all defeated. Now, how long that can continue? Can that happen on a global level? Impacts everyone in this room, because the business model of how you will build and monetize your game could be determined by the outcome of these debates. This is another phenomenon it's definitely a headwind for us, is big tech is big risk. When you look at this chart and you see that these are the approval ratings of the brands for Apple, Google, and Facebook, the attitude, not just here but around the world, is very, very critical of tech. And why? It's all of these issues. It's not just one. It's whether you look at data security, data collection, content controls, which is otherwise like hate speech, or the broadcast of crimes on using those platforms, which is awful. And we went through it as our industry when we had our challenges around violent content. It's now centered very much in the tech space. Antitrust, diversity, all of these issues are swirling around tech. Well, as it swirls there, what's the impact on us? We don't suffer from a lot of these challenges. We have some that we need to work on, and we're pretty good at it as an industry. That's a definite headwind that we face. And privacy, as a specific subset of that, we have 3 different things that are all happening. Everybody here has followed what's happened with the privacy debate on kind of a newspaper level, but the GDPR is coming up on this is the European Union's privacy rule, is coming up on its 1-year anniversary. California last year passed an even more restrictive privacy package or privacy regulation package, and what they did is they passed the law but set an effective date of 1/1/2020. saying we're going to give everybody time to adjust their business models to these new privacy rules. And if you're impacting more than 20 million Californians, then you're going to have to comply with the California rule, even if you have no intention of actually selling into that market. If you hit that total, that you'll be forced to comply. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking on Congress, which has the ability to pass a law to preempt all of this and set a uniform set of standards. But I will leave that to a discussion outside the room about how many people think that Congress can actually pass a law together. If our country is operating at a level we can solve a question like this by the end of the year. Very active debates in Washington, a lot of discussion. All of this escalates pressure and risk. So if you're building a game, if you're building a platform, that's a type of risk you have. Those are just a few of the tailwinds that match up or pair with those headwinds. And then I put together this kind of summary slide. Such an exciting time to be in this industry. So many forces that are outside of the reach and the scope of any company at this conference are driving the success of our industry. Remarkable tools that we have at our disposal to grow. It's staggering, but these challenges are out there, and unfortunately, it's the lowest common denominator thinking that's our enemy. All it takes is one company to overreach, one company to give that poster child of abuse case study for a regulator, and it can happen not just here in the US, but globally, that we have that risk where it can happen in other countries. So this is just a quick summary of that, but it's a fantastic time, but there's much changing over the course of the next year. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions in 1 minute and 32 seconds. Thank you. Any questions? Come on, this is too easy. Ed, go ahead. What's that? Well, I'm right now running my own consulting firm where I have the benefit of the opportunity to be, I'm free of being the mayor of the industry, so now I get to pick winners and sit on boards and advisory boards. And so I'm doing that, and then it's interesting where the focus comes from is industry adjacent. Our industry is impacting so many other industries around the world, they don't even know how to talk to us. And so that's been an area of a lot of interest and a lot of good, but that's a great question, thank you. Another question? All right, we're going once, twice, sold. Have a great conference. Thank you, Patty. Appreciate it.